You know that feeling when you're driving down a road and suddenly realize you've passed an important exit, but it's too late to turn back? That's how I felt when I hit 65. I thought I knew everything about getting old. After all, I'd watched my parents, my aunts and uncles, my grandparents go through it. But seeing it from the outside is nothing like living it from the inside. Imagining it isn't the same as feeling it in your bones. And there are 7 things that started happening to me after that age that nobody, absolutely nobody, prepared me for. Things you might think won't happen to you, that you'll be different, that you'll somehow dodge. But you won't. I'm 71 now, and I need to tell you these truths while there's still time for you to prepare yourself better than I prepared myself. The first thing that happens is your body just stops asking permission. It doesn't give you a heads up anymore. It doesn't negotiate. I woke up one ordinary Tuesday 2 months after my 65th birthday, and I couldn't get out of bed properly. It wasn't a sharp pain. It was something worse. It was as if every single joint in my body had decided to go on strike simultaneously. My wife, Mariana, looked at me, startled. I was always the guy who ran 5 miles every Saturday, who carried the groceries in one go, who climbed stairs without a second thought. And suddenly, out of nowhere, my left knee ached when I bent it. My right shoulder complained when I lifted my arm. My back protested when I stood up for more than 20 minutes. The doctors said it was normal. Normal, as if being common made it any less terrifying to realize your body had become a stranger living inside you. And you know what's worse? You start planning your life around the aches. You stop going to that restaurant because the chairs are too uncomfortable. You no longer accept invitations for walks on the beach because the soft sand is murder on your knees. Your life starts to shrink, not because you want it to, but because your body has decided that's how it is now. I had a ritual with my kids every Sunday. We used to play soccer in the park near our house. I'd done it since they were little. Even after they grew up, got married, had kids, we kept the ritual. Every Sunday at 9 in the morning. And after 65, I had to stop. I just couldn't do it anymore. I tried a few times, but the pain was unbearable. I'd spend days recovering from a single game. My kids said it was fine, that we could do other things. But it wasn't fine, because that was our time, our tradition. And my body stole it from me. It stole it without asking if I was ready to let go. There's more. You start taking medication. A lot of medication. I, who was always the kind of person who wouldn't even take an aspirin, suddenly had a 7-day pill organizer. Medication for blood pressure in the morning, medication for cholesterol at lunch, medication for diabetes at night. And each medication has its side effects. One makes you dizzy, another leaves your mouth dry, another messes with your stomach, and you become a walking laboratory, testing combinations, adjusting dosages, living for a bunch of colorful pills that keep you alive, but also remind you every day that you're breaking down inside. Mariana puts the pills on the nightstand next to my bed. I wake up, and the first thing I see are those little bottles. Before I even brush my teeth, before I even have my coffee, I have to swallow 5 different pills. And that makes you feel old in a way nothing else does. The second thing nobody tells you is that people start treating you differently, as if you've suddenly become a child again. I went to the bank once, about 6 months after I turned 65, to sort out a problem with my account. The teller spoke to me slowly, enunciating every word, as if I'd lost the ability to understand English. My son Ricardo started calling me every day to ask if I'd taken my medication every single day. I tried to explain that I still had my memory, that I could still remember simple things, but he insisted. And I realized it wasn't just him. My grandkids stopped asking me to play catch. My friends stopped inviting me to drive when we went out together. People started holding my arm to cross the street, even when I didn't ask for help. They started speaking louder, even though I could hear perfectly well. And worst of all, they started making decisions for me. Small things at first, choosing the restaurant because they thought the other one had too many stairs, not telling me about an event because they thought I'd get tired. And little by little, you realize you've lost your autonomy, not because you can't do things anymore, but because people have decided you can't. I remember one specific incident that hurt me deeply. My daughter, Helena, was organizing a graduation party for her son, my oldest grandson. I asked if I could help with anything, if they needed money, if they wanted me to pick something up. She smiled that condescending smile and said, "Oh, Dad, you don't need to worry about anything. Just show up that day and have fun," as if I were just any guest, as if I weren't the grandfather, as if my only role was to exist and not get in the way. I insisted, said I wanted to participate, that I wanted to feel useful, and she gave me a task. She asked me to pick the songs that would play during dinner. Songs. As if that were a huge responsibility. As if I couldn't do anything more complex than select tunes on an app. This corrodes you from the inside in a silent way. You start to doubt yourself. You start to think, can I really not do these things anymore? Am I being stubborn in wanting to maintain my independence? Should I accept this new role of the useless old man everyone seems to want to give me? And the saddest part is that it happens with love. People do it because they love you, because they want to protect you, because they're afraid of losing you. But the result is the same. You feel diminished, infantilized, invisible. Let me ask you a direct question. Do you also feel like the people around you have started treating you differently? As if you've lost something you once had? Tell me in the comments below. Write it like this. People treat me differently since and finish it with what changed. It could be age, it could be an illness, it could be anything. Because when we share these experiences, we realize we're not alone in this strange feeling of being infantilized, and maybe your comment will help someone feel less invisible today. So tell me, how do people treat you now? The third thing is that your friends start to disappear. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean literally. I had a group of 6 friends. We'd known each other since our 20s. We'd get together every month to play cards, have some beers, shoot the breeze. When I turned 65, there were 6 of us. When I turned 67, there were 4. By the time I was 69, there were 3. Tony had a stroke and was left with lingering effects that meant he couldn't leave the house on his own anymore. George got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away 4 months after the diagnosis. Frank just vanished. His family said he was developing dementia and didn't recognize anyone. And suddenly, you look around a table that used to be full and you see empty chairs. Chairs that will never again be occupied by those people. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. You go to the funerals, you shake the widow's hands, you say you're sorry, and then you go home and stare at your phone, full of contacts for people who are no longer here. There's a specific kind of pain in outliving your friends, a pain that makes you question why you're still here and they're not. A strange guilt for still breathing when people you loved no longer are. George had been my best friend since 1972, 53 years of friendship. He was the only person who truly knew me, who knew my flaws, my fears, my ridiculous youthful dreams. We had an inside joke for everything, our own language that no one else understood. When he died, a part of me died with him, because all those shared memories, all those references, all those moments now only exist inside my head. There's no one else alive who remembers that summer in 1978 when we just hit the road with no destination and ended up sleeping in the car in a town that wasn't even on the map. No one else remembers our ridiculous band that lasted 3 rehearsals. No one else gets the joke about old Mr. Henderson's parrot at the corner store. And you know what happens? You stop making new friends. Because what's the point? To get attached to someone who will probably die before you can form a real bond? To start the whole process of building intimacy all over again, knowing that time is running out, you shut down. You protect yourself. You choose solitude over the pain of losing someone else. And that turns you into a harder, more bitter, more lonely version of who you used to be. I think about how many times I've turned down invitations in recent years. How many times I've said no to meeting new people, to stepping out of my comfort zone, to risking feeling again, all out of fear. Fear of losing, fear of suffering, fear of the story repeating itself one more time. The fourth thing that will happen is that you'll become invisible. Completely invisible. I'm not exaggerating. There are places you walk into and people literally don't see you. I went into an electronics store the other day because I wanted to buy a new computer. I stood in front of a salesman for 5 minutes. 5 solid minutes. He helped 3 people who came in after me, all younger. When he finally looked at me, it was with that look like he was doing me a favor. On the street, people bump into you like you're a lamppost. At the grocery store, they cut in front of you in line like you're not there. And the worst part is, it happens, even with people you know. I ran into an old co-worker at the mall the other day. We worked together for 15 years. He walked right past me, looked directly at me, and kept going. He didn't recognize me, or maybe he recognized me and decided it wasn't worth stopping. I don't know which is worse. You become a ghost walking among the living, a presence that people tolerate but don't notice. And that does something to your self-esteem that's hard to explain. You start to doubt if you still matter, if you still have value, if you still truly exist, or if you're just a shadow of what you once were. Some days I leave the house and come back without having had a single meaningful interaction with another human being besides Mariana. No one greets me. No one strikes up a conversation. No one makes eye contact. It's like I've become part of the urban furniture. Another old guy sitting on a park bench. Another retiree wandering the aisles of the supermarket without a hurry. Another number in the census data. But not a person. Not someone with stories, with experiences, with something to contribute. I remember when I was 40 and walked into a room, people noticed. They wanted my opinion. They included me in the important conversations. They asked for my advice. Now, when I walk into a room, the conversations continue as if I haven't arrived. When I try to contribute something, people give that polite smile and keep talking as if I hadn't said anything. It's a social death that happens little by little, so slowly you don't even notice until you're completely isolated. And then you look around and realize you're alone in the middle of a crowd, that no one really sees you, that you've become irrelevant to the world. The fifth thing is that your sense of time gets weird. It feels like the days drag on forever, but the years fly by in the blink of an eye. I wake up in the morning and the day crawls. I have coffee, read the paper, watch TV, have lunch, take a nap, have dinner, watch more TV, go to sleep. And in the midst of all that, nothing really happens. Nothing changes. It's always the same routine, the same shows, the same conversations. But when I look back, it's already been 7 years since I retired. 7 years that feel like 7 months. There's a strange sensation of being stuck in a time machine that operates at 2 speeds simultaneously. The present drags in slow motion, but the recent past feels like it happened yesterday. I remember with absolute clarity the day my father died, 23 years ago. I remember the clothes I was wearing. I remember the smell of the hospital. I remember every word he said before he closed his eyes for the last time. But I don't remember what I had for lunch the day before yesterday. I remember my honeymoon with Mariana in 1978. I remember the color of the dress she was wearing, the sound of the waves on the beach, the taste of the cheap wine we bought from a little roadside stand. But I don't remember where I put my glasses this morning. Your memory becomes something selective and cruel. It perfectly preserves the painful things, the regrets, the losses, but it erases the details of the present, the small joys, the ordinary moments. You get caught between a vivid past and a hazy present, unable to properly plan for the future because you don't know how much time you have left. Mariana sometimes asks me, "What do you want to do next year?" And I don't know what to say, because next year feels like an eternity and also feels like tomorrow, because making plans has become risky, something that might not happen, because every time I mark something on the calendar, there's a little voice in the back of my mind saying, "Will you still be here? Will your body hold up? Is it worth getting excited about something that might not happen?" And that paralyzes you. It stops you from living in the present because you're stuck in the past and afraid of the future. It's a temporal prison with no escape. The sixth thing that happens is you stop dreaming about the future. This seems obvious, but it's not. You don't realize when it happens. When I was 30, I made plans for the next 20 years. When I was 40, I planned for the next 10. When I was 50, I thought about the next 5. But after 65, I stopped making plans. Not intentionally. It was automatic. I stopped thinking about traveling to distant places because what if I get sick there? I stopped making big projects because what if I don't finish them? I stopped learning new things because what's the point if I won't have time to use it? And the saddest part is nobody questions it. When a young person says they want to learn to play the guitar, everyone cheers. When an old person says the same thing, everyone smiles condescendingly as if it's cute but useless. Society as a whole conspires to convince you that you've lived your life, and now you just have to wait for the end. And if you're not careful, you end up believing it. You end up accepting that your best days are behind you, that there's nothing new left to experience, that this is it until the end. And when you accept that, when you stop dreaming, something inside you dies even before your body stops functioning. I had a dream when I was younger. I wanted to write a book. Nothing too ambitious, just a book about my family's history, about the things my grandfather told me when I was a kid, about my grandmother's recipes, about the war stories my uncle lived through. I started a few times over the years, but something more urgent always came up. Work, bills, kids, responsibilities, and I put it off. I always thought I'd have time later. When I retired, I thought, now's the time. Now I have all the time in the world. But I couldn't do it. I sat down in front of the computer and nothing came out because I realized it was too late. My grandfather died 40 years ago. My grandmother 35 years ago. My uncle 22 years ago. And all those stories, all those memories I was going to record are already half forgotten in my head. The details are lost. The nuances have disappeared. And even if I wrote it now, it would be a poor, incomplete version of what it could have been if I had done it when it was still fresh in my memory. So I gave up. I filed another dream away in the drawer of regrets. The seventh and last thing, the most brutal of all, is that you realize with absolute clarity that you are going to die. It's no longer an abstract idea. It's no longer something that happens to other people. It's no longer a philosophical concept. It's a concrete certainty knocking on your door every day. I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I think is, another day gone, one less day left. I go to sleep at night and wonder if I'll wake up tomorrow. Every twinge in your chest makes you think it's a heart attack. Every dizzy spell makes you think it's a stroke. Every forgotten name makes you think it's the beginning of Alzheimer's. You live with death as a constant companion, a shadow that follows you everywhere. And you know what's the strangest part? It doesn't necessarily make you sad. It makes you desperate not to waste what's left. It makes you want to hug people tighter. It makes you want to say, I love you more often. It makes you want to fix the things you've broken. Because you truly know deep down in your soul that time is up, that there's no more later that you always promised yourself, that it's now or never. An urgency takes over, a rush to live that is both liberating and terrifying. Because you want to do everything, you want to savor every second, but at the same time, your body can't keep up, your energy is gone, your possibilities have diminished. I wake up at 6 in the morning every day, not because I have something to do, but because I don't want to waste a single minute sleeping. I go to bed early at 9 at night because I'm exhausted. But those 15 hours awake are precious. They're all I have. And I keep calculating, if I live to 80, which is the average, I have 9 years. 9 years is 3,285 days. It sounds like a lot when you put it like that. But when you think you've already lived over 26,000 days, 3,000 sounds like nothing. It's a crumb, a leftover, and you want every one of those days to count. But the truth is, most of them don't. Most of them are just like the day before. You become increasingly aware of death and increasingly less capable of doing anything meaningful with the time you have left. And here's the part that haunts me the most to this day. I wasted so many years thinking I had time. So many years putting off important conversations because I thought there would be another chance. So many years working too much and loving too little because I thought balance could wait. And now that I've reached this point, now that I'm on the other side of that invisible line of 65, I realize everyone tried to warn me, but I didn't want to listen. My father tried to tell me before he died. He was 72, lying in his hospital bed, holding my hand with surprising strength for someone so frail. And he said, "Don't wait until it's too late to truly live." I nodded, said I understood, and kept doing exactly the same thing I always did. I kept chasing promotions at work I didn't need. I kept missing my kids' birthdays because I had important meetings. I kept promising Mariana that next year we'd travel, and next year turned into 2, turned into 5, turned into 10. I worked an average of 60 hours a week for 35 years. That's 109,200 hours of work. If you divide that by 24 hours, that's 4,500 days. 12 and a half years of my life spent inside offices, meetings, reports, presentations. 12 and a half years I'll never get back. 12 and a half years I could have spent with my children, with my wife, with my friends, truly living. You see, what nobody tells you when you're young is that getting older isn't a smooth slide downhill. It's not some beautiful sunset where you just get wiser and more tranquil. It's a free fall. It's a series of losses, one after another, each one chipping away at who you were. You lose physical strength, you lose friends, you lose relevance, you lose autonomy, you lose your dreams, and in the end, you lose your life. And the only thing that makes it bearable is looking back and knowing you truly lived while you could, that you loved the people who mattered, that you said the things you needed to say, that you did what truly mattered. But if you get here and realize you wasted it all chasing after empty things, there's no greater pain. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Frank. He was 69 when I moved in here 7 years ago. He was a cheerful guy, always had a joke ready, always willing to lend a hand. One day he told me he'd worked 45 years as a bank manager. 45 years. Said he barely saw his kids grow up because he was always at the bank. Weekends, holidays, shortened vacations, all for the bank. When he retired at 63, he had huge plans. He was going to travel all over the country with his wife. He was going to learn to fish. He was finally going to be a present grandfather, but his wife died of cancer 2 years after he retired. His adult kids had their own lives and barely showed up. The grandkids had no connection to him because he'd never been around when they were little. And he was left alone in a big house with all the time in the world and no one to share it with. I watched that man wither away in 3 years, not from illness, from loneliness, from regret. He died last year, alone in his room, and it took 2 days for anyone to find him because nobody missed him. 2 days, a man who worked his whole life, contributed to society, paid his taxes, raised children, died alone, and nobody noticed for 2 days. When they found him, they called his sons. One lived in California, the other in Texas. Neither of them could make it the same day. They said they had work commitments. Work commitments. Their father was dead, and they had work commitments. And you know what's the worst part? They learned it from him. He taught them by example that work is more important than family. And now he was lying alone on a slab, proving that lesson wrong. I went to his funeral. There were fewer than 20 people. For a man who lived 76 years, who knew hundreds of people, who worked with thousands over his career, there were fewer than 20 people at his funeral. And most of them were neighbors who barely knew him, people who showed up out of obligation. His sons cried, but it was a cry of guilt more than of sorrow. I saw it in their eyes. I saw the regret. I saw the realization that they'd wasted their last chance to have a father because he was still alive, still available, still had love to give. But they were too busy, just like he was too busy for them when they were kids. The cycle repeated. The curse continued. So tell me something. Are you paying attention to what really matters? Or are you doing what I did, what Frank did, what millions of people do every day? Are you chasing after things that in the end won't mean a thing? Money you can't take with you? Status that evaporates the second you leave the company? Approval from people who don't even truly care about you? Because I'll tell you one thing. When you get where I am, when your body starts betraying you, when your friends start dying off, when you become invisible, when time gets weird, when you stop dreaming, when death becomes real, the only thing that will matter are the people you loved and the moments you truly lived. Everything else is noise. Everything else is a distraction. Everything else is a lie we tell ourselves to justify bad choices. If I could go back and talk to my 30-year-old self, you know what I'd say? I'd tell him to quit that job that was slowly killing him, to call his parents every day, not just on Sundays, to play with his kids more even when he was tired, to travel with Maria even when money was tight, because memories are worth more than bank accounts. To take that photography class he always wanted, that backpacking trip, that difficult but necessary conversation. To stop worrying so much about what other people thought and start worrying more about what he felt. To understand that success isn't how much you earn, but how much you live. That a good life isn't measured in achievements, but in connections. That in the end, absolutely in the end, nobody regrets not working more. Everyone regrets not loving more. I'd tell him to cherish every second with his dad, because in 15 years, he wouldn't be here anymore. I'd tell him to record his mom's stories, because in 20 years, she'd have forgotten them all due to Alzheimer's. I'd tell him to take more pictures, write more letters, say, I love you more often, hug tighter, forgive faster, hold on to less grudges. I'd tell him that stupid fight with his brother over inheritance wasn't worth it, that they went 5 years without speaking because of money, that in the end made no difference in either of their lives. I'd tell him that promotion he wanted so badly and got after years of effort wasn't worth the lost Sundays, the missed birthdays, the lost moments. But you know what? Even being here, even being 71, even having lost so much time, I still have today. I still have this morning. I can still call my kids. I can still hug Maria. I can still make some difference, even a small one. And you have today, too. You have now. No matter how old you are younger in this moment than you will ever be again. This is the youngest day of the rest of your life. So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to keep putting it off? Are you going to keep believing the lie that there is time? Are you going to keep living on autopilot, waiting for some magical day when things will change on their own? Because I guarantee you that day isn't coming. Things don't change on their own. You'll have to make them change today, now, this very moment. Pick up the phone and call someone you love. Send that text you've been putting off for months. Book that trip you've been postponing for years. Forgive that person who hurt you. Ask for forgiveness from that person you hurt. Do that thing your heart's been asking for, but your head keeps making excuses for. Because the clock doesn't stop. There's no pause button. There's no going back. Every second that ticks by is a second you'll never get back. If you made it this far, It's because something in this story struck a chord with you. Maybe you're starting to realize you're letting life pass you by too. Maybe you see your own story reflected in mine. You're not alone. This channel exists for people like us, people who want to wake up before it's too late, people who want to learn from others' mistakes instead of making them all themselves. Subscribe here to get more real stories, more lessons I've learned in my 71 years of life, more truths that nobody has the guts to tell you. Give this a thumbs up if this video made you think, even if hearing these things hurt a little. And please, tell me in the comments which of these 7 things scared you the most. Or even better, what are you going to change in your life after watching this? I'd love to read your story and know that somehow I managed to help you wake up a little sooner than I did. The clock is ticking. For me, for you, for everyone you love. Don't waste another single day.